So, and I think the other thing that people in 2 to 3 hours can get wrong, and I think we should maybe just talk about that, is for the novice is fueling. What do they need to take with them? What must they eat before the ride? So let's say they're going to do a Saturday 3-hour ride. What should they think about?
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that especially in the beginning, people tend to use more glucose when they exercise.
Correct.
So I think fueling is very important then.
Yeah, most people just underfuel, especially recreational riders. I think the professionals are so well trained and they're so in tune with like the intensities they need to be training at and racing intensities that, they know their fueling rates pretty well. And I think the research and data coming out on fueling and the amount of carbohydrates we can actually tolerate is going to, I think it's a huge field that's going to explode this year and going forward. Because I mean, the gut training that everyone's doing, essentially teaching their bodies to use the fuel and ingest way more than we ever have is, the science around that is really developing nicely and we're learning a lot more. But I mean, back to your point, I mean, most people underfuel massively, especially recreational riders. You know, you go ride for 3 hours and you maybe have a coffee and a croissant at the coffee stop, and then you have a bit of water and you maybe eat a little bit of oats before, and that's it. Then you get home and you smash the fridge because you're starving and you haven't eaten. And obviously that then just causes you to lose metabolic efficiency and training. You know, like your ability to produce a quality ride is going to be much less if you're underfueled and bonking and not producing energy because you don't have any energy. You know, like a car, you need petrol to go forward. I mean, there are two schools of thought. Obviously, you want to teach your body to use fat. So doing some rides on water only, fasted rides, trying to improve your ability to access fat within the muscle is really important. And you get endurance adaptations from that. But secondly to that, you actually just need to fuel for the work you're doing. So most people underfuel massively, and fueling well is incredibly important because, as I said, you'll sustain intensity and quality for whatever duration. You know, so if you're doing the cycle tour, you know, you want to be aiming for, as a recreational guy, you know, obviously I would normally say higher, but at 50 to 60 grams of carbs an hour is a good estimate. And the reason why I say carbohydrate is you can't metabolize fat fast enough if you're ingesting fat, for example, even fat within the muscle at the intensities you need to when you are riding hard. So obviously I understand a lot about the low carb side and people saying, oh, you don't need carbohydrate, you should only ride on water and you have enough fat. Yes, but the problem is when you're racing or riding hard, the intensity you can metabolize fat at is just, it's way too low to be able to sustain the work that you need to do. So obviously being able to use fat well is incredibly important, but you need carbohydrate because you simply can't go fast without it. Yes, you can improve your ability to utilize fat, and professionals have a very good ability to use fat at moderate intensities, but they aren't high. I would say for any recreational guy doing a hard ride race, 60 grams an hour is a good starting point. For endurance rides over 2 hours, 30 to 40 grams an hour is a good starting point as well. And that can be from anything. It doesn't have to be from sugary products. You can have any type of natural food, whatever you want, as long as you're just getting that fuel in and teaching your body to utilize it. As you become faster, you can then improve or increase the oxidation rates of how much carbs you can use. You use more fat, but you also learn to use carbs better. So, we see professionals now racing at 120 to 130 grams an hour. And recreational riders even doing that. Guys I train can do 100, 110 comfortably. I mean, that's normally what I do in a race as well. So, I mean, there are many different variables around that. It's not set in stone, but yeah, you need to fuel. Most people underfuel. And I think if you use those rough guidelines, you'll get to a good point. Sorry, I know I'm rambling, but one last point is most people don't fuel while in training. And when they get to racing, they think the carbs are the problem because their stomach, they get GI distress, they have issues, gut problems and stuff. And that's just because their gut isn't trained. Because when you ride hard, there's not just blood in your stomach, there's blood in your legs, cooling. You need metabolites in and out of the cells. You obviously need to cool, so blood will be at the skin. Therefore, your ability to use carbohydrate and ingest fuel is very different than when you're just riding easy or you're doing a training ride. So training your gut is incredibly important at high intensities as well, because the response and how you use carbs will be different. Even with temperature, there'll be different responses in the heat and the cold as well. So, I mean, obviously that's getting a bit more technical for the recreational guy, but basically train your gut in all different types of conditions and scenarios so that when you get to race day, you know what you need to ingest and you'll feel good and you won't have problems.
So 60 grams, quite a lot for the average rider. So
what does that look like for the average guy out there? If you take a gel, how much would that
It's about 20 grams.
Yeah. Okay.
Banana is like 25 to 30 grams. give or take, you know. So like,
Powerade is about what?
So just to bring it back,
10 to 20 grams, something like
I
that.
mean, so it'll get a little more complex than that. But when you start to use drinks, you want to have the right type of carbohydrate in the drink. So it should be maltodextrin and fructose, and the ratio changes. You should start with 2-to-1, and the ratio will change the higher you go. So, I mean, the evidence is coming out more and more that 1 to 0.8 is better for very high amounts, i.e. 90 plus. But yeah, any typical sports drink, if it has maltodextrin and fructose in it, 2-to-1, you can't really go wrong. I wouldn't use Powerade, Energade. What's actually ironic about those drinks these days is they're actually dropping the sugar content, which used to probably was one of the best things about them, to be honest. Now I've actually looked at an Energade the other day. It came in a race pack and it was like 10 or 15 grams of sugar. And I was like, this isn't very useful for me if I want to go fast. But I mean, obviously it depends on the amount and the ratio. If you just look on the products, what you want to use, if you have like a 3-hour race, go, okay, 60, 60, 60. What I want to use when? Okay, I've got gels. I'm used to eating bananas, for example. Cool. Okay. Might be a bit hard to eat that in a race, depending on how hard you're going. But yeah, you basically just plan it out. I need this, this, this over this duration. I have 2 bottles. That'll split that. And you just play numbers and basically work out what you need. So that's pretty much what it would look like, I'd say. And whatever, if it's gels, bars, some people I train only use gels. They don't like bars. It doesn't work well for them. Other people only eat and then they take carb drinks. So it really depends on the person. But you just need to experiment and find what works for you. And it doesn't have to be, as I said, race products only.